Youngsplains, the show where an old-timer explains old-timey things to young whippersnappers, and they, in turn, explain newfangled nonsense to him. And now, here's your host, Precious D.
Hello, friends and neighbors, and welcome to the show. I am your host, Precious D. I am the old part of Oldsplains. This is our first episode. We're still kind of working out the premise. Each week, I will explain some old-timey thing to some youngsters, and they in turn will explain some newfangled nonsense to me. I think we're going to have a rotating group of youngsters. We're still banging out the format. But the youngsters that are with me today are my friends Brianna and Quinn. Say hello to the folks, Brianna and Quinn.
Hi, I'm Quinn.
I'm Brianna.
You can give your full names if you want, or you can remain anonymous, semi-anonymous.
They will not be getting my full name.
Which is probably safer. Or you could use made-up names if you want. Nicknames.
They don't even know that Quinn is my real name.
Your address, your social security number. Mother's maiden name. Q-Dog. Q-Dog is here with me.
Q-Dog.
For the record, folks, I am 56 years old. Brianna, tell the folks how old you are.
I'm the awkward middle age. I'm 23.
And I am freshly 18. Freshly 18.
Freshly 18.
New adult, yeah.
Now,
just got here.
Brianna, tell the folks how we met so that they understand that it's not at all creepy that a 56-year-old guy is hanging out with a 23-year-old girl.
We're just running around on the street asking people to...
We were all in a production of Much Ado About Nothing.
She was in the candy store, and...
Yeah. I was walking down the road, I had my tricycle and my little propeller hat, and then he rolled up in a white van beside me and was like, "Hey kid, want to be famous? I'll make you famous right now, kid."
So yes, doing theater.
We were all in a production of Much Ado About Nothing.
A variety of people.
Yes.
And I was hero / Vergis, and Precious D was Leonardo / Baraccio, and Quinn was Claudio / watch number 3.
Seems like we're really lacking on the anonymous thing.
Okay, well, I'll just redo it. I'm sorry.
I mean, yeah. People
no, it's fine.
I didn't say where we did the production.
No, that's fine.
That's true.
Right.
That's true.
That's right. However, it was in a replica of Shakespeare's Globe, so fancy.
Okay. No.
How many of those are in the United States, do you think?
No, one, as far as I know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's in like Utah or something, isn't it?
So you folks may or may not know that I have another podcast called Monster Movie Fun Time Go.
Yeah, you almost never talk about it.
That's the same way I met my co-host in that podcast is we doing theater together. And while we were doing this show, I kept it reminded me of an old idea for a podcast I had because I kept making reference to some old-timey stuff that these kids had no idea.
No one would respond to them. It made him very sad.
Yeah. So which leads us to today's topic. I would peek into the women's dressing room and say...
Because the women's dressing room door was open and was a social space.
Yeah.
Yes, it was open.
I don't know if we would say it like that. Peeking
the door was open. I wasn't barging in.
The women's dressing room was open and used as a social space when it was not being used for changing.
I was not pulling a Trump on Yes. I wasn't doing
Oh,
a
yeah,
Trump,
the verdict just came out about that.
Yes. It's some sort of historic shit happening today, folks, as we record this. The guilty verdict just came down for former President Donald J. Trump. So, yeah, that's some historic shit, kids. Pay attention. But I would lean in and say, I just want to wish you all good luck. We're all counting on you. And they had no idea what I was talking about. So
that did Yeah.
That led to me going, what do you mean you've never seen the movie
I
Airplane?
just thought you were saying that, you know. I thought you were just
Did
saying.
we say that's what we were
Right.
discussing today?
Yes, we will be
Wait, have
discussing
we?
the movie
Have we
Airplane.
established that?
Yeah. Yes. We'll be discussing the movie Airplane in a moment. So, Brianna, when I was making that joke, had you even heard of the movie?
I had heard of the movie. I'd seen the poster.
That was the main thing for
Okay.
me as well. I'd seen the poster a lot of places, but I never had any idea what the movie was about.
I was having a binge of
Okay.
those like YouTube videos where they have like professionals come on and they critique like movies or TV. So there were a couple of ones where they had pilots on and they talked about airplanes some. But that's it.
Okay. I think the other girls had not even heard of it.
Oh wow.
That's the poster where the airplane's tied in a knot.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
it's a good poster because it's memorable.
it's an extremely memorable poster.
Yeah.
I've seen it many places, but never once have I been like, oh, I wonder what that movie is.
Now, before we get into that, I want to establish a baseline here for Oldsplain, Youngsplains. So I'm going to ask you guys a couple of questions. Have you ever used a rotary phone?
Yes, I have used a rotary phone, and
I
I know how
haven't,
they
but I
work.
know how
Okay.
to.
Have you ever used a payphone, a public payphone?
No.
I have not, no.
Have you ever owned a cassette tape player?
I do. I
Of
own
course,
multiple.
Quinn owns one.
Yes.
Because he's a hipster.
I own
Quinn's
many,
a hipster
yeah.
doofus.
My
I
household.
wouldn't ask about a
owns
turntable because that's very hip these days to own a turntable.
Oh, I don't own a turntable. I don't have room for a turntable. Well, and then the cassette players that I have are very small, to be honest, and it's mostly recorders. I
Yeah.
mostly have recorders.
We have a stereo system set up in one of my one of the rooms in my house, and it has a 6-disc CD player, and I believe there's also a cassette player on it, but
Wow.
I've never used it. So,
Wow.
but it's there.
Is there an 8-track player on it? Does it have 8-track
Probably not.
capability? 8-tracks sucked. We'll do a whole episode on 8-tracks one day. They sucked. Have you ever called time and temperature?
What does that
What do you mean by? Sorry.
Okay, I guess that's a no. So before everybody had a pocket computer on them at all times, in order to set your clock, or if you just didn't have a clock nearby, or maybe you just bought a new clock or replaced the battery, there was a number that you could call that would tell you the time and the temperature.
Oh.
That's kind
It
of
would
nice.
say something
That's
like the
cool, yeah.
temperature is 75 degrees Fahrenheit. At the tone, the time will be exactly 12:52 a.m. or whatever. And then there'd be a little
Wonder if
beep.
It's a strange time to be
And I
calling.
think if you just stayed
time
on the
temperature.
yeah, I think if you stayed on the line, it would just continue telling you, updating
Huh.
you.
I wonder if it was just.
Did
it
you
was just a
ever?
person, but- It's just a
No,
person
it
whose
was some
job-
sort of a computer.
Wow.
It was some sort of a recording. Because you only need to record it once. And then you can just let it play on a loop.
Oh yeah.
Well, you'd have to update the temperature part, though. But it sounded like some kind of recording. Did you ever get up early on a Saturday morning to watch cartoons?
Oh, of course.
I don't know because the age I would have been doing that, my context for what early is, I did not tell time at that age. Like I didn't check regularly. I just woke up at the time I usually
But
woke
you-
up, whatever that was.
But you got up to watch the cartoons on Saturday morning.
Um,
Saturday morning
I
cartoons
think
were
so.
were a thing.
I mean, I have a lot of memory of like planning to watch cartoons at a certain time.
Yeah,
Like when Total Drama was airing.
Okay.
You watched Total Drama as a kid? That's crazy.
Yes.
My stuff was more like SpongeBob. Like, I mean, I can vividly remember being at my grandma's and waking up, and like the first thought in my brain when I wake up being like, oh, I have to get up now to go see what's playing on like Cartoon Network or whatever. Because I
SpongeBob's
watched.
a
I mean,
Nickelodeon show.
Well, see, if you had
Okay.
my my point is that there was a time when you had to get up on Saturday morning to watch cartoons because they were not on 24 hours a day. There was no
Correct.
dedicated network.
Yeah.
But it helps if
for
you
these.
own a VHS set of the first season of Pokemon.
We had VHS of the second season of SpongeBob.
So, what was your favorite cartoon as a child?
Oh.
SpongeBob, no question. I just really liked that show.
How old are we considering child?
But
Serious question, because the type of cartoon I would have watched at 5 is different
I'd
from the time one I would have
say
watched
around
at
anything before elementary. Yeah,
10.
elementary
Sorry,
school.
what?
Elementary
Before
school, I
Like
guess.
during elementary school?
Yeah.
Okay. I remember I liked Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends a lot, and I liked Phineas and Ferb.
Okay.
When I was in
Sure.
middle school, that's too late. Let me think. And when I was a really little kid on Nick Jr., my favorite show was Oswald, which was a very charming show about an octopus that had a weenie dog that was actually shaped like a hot dog. I mean, like weenie dogs are already shaped like hot dogs, but it was like she had like a bun and everything, and her name was Weenie, and she was precious. It was a very charming little show.
Now,
That's so
you
sweet.
both inadvertently answered this next question, which has to do with VHS tapes. If you had ever owned
Yeah, I
a VHS,
figured you would ask about that. Yeah.
have
When
you?
my sister and I
Did you ever? Do you remember? Did you ever rent one from a store?
No, I don't think we did. I think
a VHS tape
I think we just
specifically,
bought them.
Yeah.
I think we just had
because
VHSs and we would watch the ones we
You're saying
had.
rentals existed, but you just bought them?
No, I think like my grandma had some that she had had for years, and we would just watch
okay.
those. Because I
I
don't
see.
ever remember there being like new ones, you know?
I think
Okay.
my family only ever rented DVDs.
Yeah, I know we rented
Okay.
DVDs, but I don't
So
think we
you're
rented
around.
VHS.
You're around when the store switched over to DVD, but before they disappeared.
Oh yes.
You
Yeah,
can still rent DVDs, but from a kiosk. You can get them from the Red Box, but that's about it.
yeah. And we used to
Yeah.
rent
Can't get them from Netflix
Netflix.
anymore.
Yeah, we had the Netflix subscription that
Well,
was
we used
like they mailed you CDs, and it was like,
yeah.
wow, there's
They
DVDs.
We
they
had that
ended
right up
that.
till just this year. We had it right up till they ended it earlier this
Wow,
year, and
really?
then
They
you could
ended it this year?
download. It was either this year or late last year, but it was within the past 12 months. And then they had a
Wow.
thing where you could download a PDF that had your stats,
Oh, that's cool.
like your total
Oh.
number, your
I'm
total
pretty
number
sure
of rentals
my
and stuff.
dad bought some of the DVDs when they were starting to phase out that model. Like I think he bought some of them, so we owned them and purchased them
Huh.
from Netflix
I'm not aware of
in the past 12 months. But maybe I'm misremembering.
No, they did tell. I'm not aware that they did that, but and it's a little unclear what they were going to do with their whole catalog. But they basically told you keep your last DVD. So I made sure
that's
to
nice.
make my last one something that was not available, not in print, and not available anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
What was that?
Okay, this it's called Brain Dead, and it's a early Peter Jackson horror film. It's a symphony of gore, and you can't get it right now. It's not streaming anywhere. It's not had a Blu-ray release. It's not currently in print on DVD. So there you go. Have you ever watched The Tonight Show? And if so, who was the earliest host that you remember of The Tonight Show?
No, I've never watched The Tonight Show. I've watched Saturday Night Live, but I don't. I wasn't I wasn't big on night show stuff ever.
I wasn't really into them either, and I can't keep up with which one is which.
I'm
So
trying
I
to think.
don't. Who is the current host of the Tonight Show?
Yeah, I don't even know because I don't currently watch the night show, so I don't I don't know what's going on
Jimmy
there at all.
Jimmy Fallon
Which
is
Jimmy?
the current host of The Tonight Show.
Oh yeah, he did that
Jimmy
thing
Fallon.
with Ben and Jerry's.
Okay.
There is a lot of these days people tend to watch clips the next day on YouTube
Oh,
rather than watching the actual show when it's live.
I
Jimmy
think.
Fallon is the
Um,
furthest back host I know, but most of that was because I did not pay attention to that as a child. I was not good with celebrity names.
okay.
And by the time
Yeah,
I was paying attention, I was a teenager.
I've always been terrible with
Okay.
celebrities. Like I've never been
Uh,
good with celebrities.
what is the first video game system that you owned, or your family
Oh, that
owned,
was a
or
Wii. I
that
owned
you
a
play
Wii.
that you played? A Wii?
Actually,
Okay.
sorry, I don't remember which came out. If it was the Xbox 360 or the Wii first, but it was one. I think it was the Wii,
Okay.
but it was one of those.
Okay.
Played a lot of the N64, but the oldest console I've played is the SNES, and my family still plays on the N64 sometimes. And the SNES is plugged
Okay.
in. We just haven't. The 64 has Dr. Mario, and that's my family's main thing that we do. So
Okay. And here's the last question. What is the first Star Wars movie you saw in a theater?
I don't think I've ever seen any of them in theaters.
same here because
Get out.
I'm not a big Star Wars fan, and my family does not really go to the movies.
Because I didn't want
Okay.
to see the new movies, the new set of movies. Whenever it came out, I didn't like it, so I didn't go see it.
Yeah, the sequels.
Yeah. I think it might have been uh, A New Hope or whatever they were playing whenever the 40th anniversary hit, and so they were playing. Was it The Last Jedi they were playing in theaters for the 40th anniversary?
It
I
would
went and
not
saw
have been The
that.
Last Jedi because The Last Jedi is episode 8.
Oh, well, whichever one. Number 6. Sorry, I don't know the names of them, but number 6.
Return
But
of the Jedi, I
so
think.
technically that would have been the first one I ever saw, but that seems like it's out of
Against the
context.
spirit of the
A
question.
reissue.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, a reissue doesn't count. It wasn't good. Okay, folks, we're going to take a little break here, and then we'll be back to talk about Airplane. And we're back. Brianna, Quinn, Airplane, thoughts?
We've watched it now.
Yeah.
You've watched
Yes,
it
we
now,
have.
yes.
We've watched it. Okay, I did like it. I did enjoy it. I will say I've seen a few comedies that were older that I I don't feel like they've landed super well for me. Like The Big Lebowski, a lot of people talk on up a lot. I didn't enjoy that one very much. But this one was really funny. I was laughing a good portion of it.
I'll admit that I was going into it with not necessarily the most favorable view because I was kind of like, it's a comedy movie from the 80s, you say. And I mentioned that I was going to watch it for this podcast, and my dad went, you're not going to like some of those jokes. And I was like, thanks, Dad. And there was some stuff that I did not enjoy. Granted, I know some of that is because of like personal things I have, but also some of it is like a product of its time. But also some of it was definitely like I was clearly not the target audience for this shot.
Yeah, I do think there was some racist stuff in there, but I was like, oh, what can you do? It was the 80s, you know? But everything else
It,
was fine. As long
yeah,
as it wasn't. Which I feel like for an 80s movie, it had
What?
surprisingly low levels amount of racism, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, it's not. There's some race-based humor,
Yeah,
but
yeah, that's
I
what I'm
wouldn't say
referring
it's
to.
outright racist.
Yeah, sorry, I
And
was using a bit
and
of herbicide there.
it doesn't have like Porky's levels of sexism. I
yeah.
think
Yeah.
It's
there's
just a thing
one
of like,
gratuitous pair of there's one gratuitous pair of boobs, but that is not the focus of the movie.
Oh my gosh,
yes,
I
there is
forgot
that
about that
one.
scene.
Yes, I was writing about how much I was enjoying that scene, and then I was like, and then there's boobs. Great, I'm no longer enjoying the scene, and I'm sad.
Just out of nowhere, they just hit you with the full frame shot on this poor woman.
There was also another shot that was
Yeah,
specifically getting
and
jiggle physics. I can't remember where, but it was a shot that I took notes about.
Oh my gosh.
I think there's an alternate cut for television where she has a shirt on, but there's still it's the basic joke that the plane is shaking and it's causing her breast to shake is still there.
Wait,
She has
there was I
shirt
must
on.
have watched the cut that had her with a shirt on because she had a shirt on in the one. There's one where she doesn't have a shirt on.
See,
Well,
I
maybe I'm
had
misremembering.
two different shots. Like the jiggle physics
Uh-huh.
one was a clothed one, and then the straight bare boobs shot was another shot. There were two separate shots.
When was the bare boobs? I never saw bare
But they both
boobs.
had to do with plane shaking. I
I
knew I should
think
have rewatched
so.
this before we.
Let's see.
Because there's the only one I remember is the one where it shows the jello on the plate shaking, and then it goes to
Uh-huh.
it cuts to this lady,
Yes,
and she had a shirt on.
that is one of them, and then the other one, uh, is after. Does anyone know how to fly a plane? And everyone starts freaking out and panicking, and I thought it was amusing, and then all of a sudden there was a woman in her underwear, and we didn't see her
What?
face,
Okay,
No.
just
yeah.
her
She just,
chest.
as part of the panic, she run. You're right.
She
You're right.
runs in and
As part
stands
of the panic, she
perfectly in front
runs
of the
by
camera.
with her.
What?
Right.
No, that
It's
must have
so
been.
natural.
I must have watched like the TV
Yeah.
version or something because I did not see a scene where that happened.
Yeah.
There was no scene where they asked the cabin if someone knew how to fly.
When they're panicking, it's when they're all panicking. Yeah.
Wow.
Does anyone know how to fly a plane?
That was
So
funny. I
I
enjoyed
don't
that
think
part.
this is a. If anybody out there has not seen this, this is a particular type of what I call surreal humor, where it's not a realistic presentation. You know, there's a lot of puns, there's a lot of sight gags. People sometimes look right into the camera. I don't think this is the first movie to ever do any of that. Monty Python and the Holy Grail certainly. Monty Python and the Holy Grail certainly has unrealistic humor, but this movie, directed by Zucker, which is Jim Abrams, David Zucker, and Jerry Zucker, really sort of started a trend of this kind of movie, mostly done by these guys in this movie, the sequel to it, and then later on in the scary movies, which eventually when the Wayans stopped doing scary movies, they brought, I think, one of the Zuckers or Abrams in to direct like Scary Movie 4. They're like, why not just go to the guys that we've been ripping off to direct this? So it's a really, very, very silly, over the top type of humor.
The word I saw a lot when I was looking at like criticism was absurd, absurdist.
Yes, that's a good.
Mhm.
Okay,
I
but
think that's
the
probably a
thing
better
is,
term than surreal.
I really
Absurdist.
enjoy that kind of humor. Absurdist humor is one of my favorite forms. Like the Beatles Help movie that they made, it's 100% absurdist
Yeah.
humor. It's the only thing that happens.
Sure.
And I think that is one of my favorite movies. Okay, I love where just random stuff is happening and there's not really like whenever he goes, okay, hit the autopilot button or whatever, and he hits it, and it's just that inflatable guy that pops up. I
His name's
cannot
Otto.
tell you I cannot tell you how hard I was laughing at
Yeah.
that just because it was so like it was so just completely wild and out of the blue and it was just happening. I may be biased because that is one of my favorite forms of comedy.
That's perfectly fine. Now, for a little bit of context here, in the mid to late 70s, and this came out in 1980, so, right after that, there was a series of successful and popular airport movies. The first one was from 1970, but then there was several sequels, and I believe they just started slapping years on the sequels. So the first one was 1970, and then there was Airport 75, Airport 77, and then the Concorde Airport 79. Titled Airport 80, the Concorde, in the United Kingdom and Japan, because I guess it didn't come out till a few months later there.
These were all like what based off of this movie?
No, these are the movies that this movie is based off of.
Oh.
Yeah. These are the movies, these were popular movies that is the reason they made this movie. But the actual plot of this movie is not from Airport. Brianna, I think you did a little research on this, didn't you?
Yes, because I was like, maybe I'll understand what was going on better if I read something that other people have talked about it. And I did understand what was going on better. I did this after I watched the movie, took very thorough notes, and then I went and I looked some stuff up, and I was like, oh, okay, that makes more sense. But there was like a list of movies, and let me see if I can find. I found this article on The Guardian interviewing David and Jerry Zucker with Jim Abrams, and I saw things like Airport 75 was one I saw, and Zero Hour though was like the main thing that they were drawing from, so much so that they paid for the remake rights of Zero Hour so they could rip things straight from Zero Hour and then spoof it.
Yeah, some of the lines are directly from it. The basic plot is from it, and Zero Hour is from 1957. So I think they were watching it on late night television or something when they got that idea. And also the idea of casting a sports star as one of the pilots.
Oh yes, yeah, I saw that.
Because Elroy Crazy Legs Hirsch was in Zero Hour, so that is why Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is in this movie. Crazy Legs was a football player, not a basketball player. Were you guys familiar with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar before you saw this?
No, not in the least. But as soon as he said, "I know you from basketball," I was like, "Wow, that guy does look like he would play basketball."
Yes. I had heard his name before. I'm not familiar. I don't follow sports enough to like be super familiar with it. But I think if you had asked me who he was, I would have been able to tell you he was a basketball player.
Yeah.
So I recognized his name. I was like, oh, okay, that must be the actual Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And I was, and I'm like, this is the joke, is that it actually is him, but he's saying no, and yeah.
Yeah. So some of that was a little lost on you, but you managed to figure it out. He's still around, and he's written some books.
Still plays basketball.
He doesn't play professionally, but he probably still plays. Sometimes you see him on the news as a commentator. I think his degree is in history, and he has written a few books. Some of them are fiction. He's written some books about Mycroft Holmes, Sherlock Holmes' older brother.
Yeah, Mycroft Holmes. That's interesting.
He's co-written 2 or 3 books about Mycroft. So he's quite a guy.
That is an odd thing.
Varied career, long and varied career. This is also the movie that turned Leslie Nielsen. Yeah. I think I have audiobooks. I might have a print one of the first one.
Yeah.
Because I was working at a bookstore when it came out. But this is also the movie that turned Leslie Nielsen from a serious actor
into a
comic actor, and he never looked back. And after this, he just mostly started making this kind of movie, like the what do you call it? Naked Gun movies. First, he was on a TV show called Police Squad, and then they spun that off into a series of 3 movies.
See, that was the thing I had heard about going into this movie, was the Naked Gun stuff.
Okay.
I had been told about that by people when they heard I was going to watch Airplane, and they were like, "Yeah, it goes into this or whatever."
Unfortunately, those movies co-star O.J. Simpson, He Rot in Hell, and another athlete making movies.
That's what they do.
Yeah,
that's what they did in the 80s.
Yeah,
that's what they did for kicks, you know.
Do they not still do that now? Don't they have like that 80 for Brady movie or something? I watched that movie.
Yes.
Yeah, 80 for Brady.
Yeah, but that's about
I watched it.
You know. He's
not
just
like, but he's just playing
as like a side character, you know.
All the wrestlers in film now.
Nowadays, it's wrestlers that all the
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But wrestling's there's a lot of acting involved in wrestling.
Well, yeah, anyway, and I feel like it's a double cross thing, because like a bunch of wrestlers are going into acting, but also like a bunch of other influencers are like going into wrestling. Like like Logan Paul or whatever. Like bunch of,
No, Logan Paul's doing boxing. There's a difference.
Sorry.
Former real estate mogul and convicted felon Donald J. Trump has done a stint in wrestling. So there you go. You never know who's gonna. Can you imagine?
Can you imagine stepping out onto the ring and it was just Donald J. Trump right in front of you. That would be nuts, man. That would be crazy.
Oh my.
Like, I don't know who you're expecting to see when you go in for a wrestling match, but it's not him.
Yeah. What were some of your favorite parts of the movie?
Well, like I said, I did really like the Air Up guy. I loved the part when the guy hailed the taxi and he pulls up the car onto the curb and then he just hops out and never comes back. And we just keep getting cuts of this guy throughout the movie, just sitting
And
in
the
this
end credits
taxi.
scene.
Yeah, just like
Yeah.
still sitting in this taxi. I love that bit. Oh my gosh, or the part where that pilot is coming in. The pilot, I don't remember his name. They call him in to help the main character fly the plane down, and you have all these charity
Yeah.
people coming up to him, and he's just beating the
Yes.
hell out of all of them. Like I
Right.
love the whole deal with the charity people where everyone who sees
Uh,
him just hates him.
Johnny Hinshaw was my favorite character. I loved him from Do you want
oh.
some coffee? And he says, no. Johnny, how about some coffee? And he says, no, thanks.
Yes.
And then he proceeded to
Yeah,
have excellent
yeah.
line delivery from there on.
Oh my gosh, his character just every scene he was in would just get more insane. Like it was that absurdist thing. Whenever they were like to the tower, and he goes to the tower, Rapunzel. That was so like. I mean, if anything, I'm gonna quote from that movie. It's gonna be that for sure because.
There's a
Oh my
sale
god.
at Penny's.
Yeah.
Oh
I think
yeah.
the one I quote the most, I think, is, well, I can make a hat or a brooch or a pterodactyl.
That makes sense. That's probably the most versatile one.
That's true.
Yes.
Yeah.
Johnny, what do you
That's the
make of
thing.
this?
I was thinking about
He's
when I
great.
heard that quote. I was like, oh, when am I going to be able to use that?
He sadly died of AIDS-related complications in 1986. So
Oh, wow.
his career was very short. It's hard to. He was in Airplane 2. Airplane 2, the sequel, is what it's called.
Yeah. Is it? How is that one?
It's good. If you enjoyed this one, you will enjoy that one. Absolutely. I
Right.
recommend it. He had a couple of small things after this, but obviously he was diagnosed in 84, died in 86. So who knows what kind of career he might have had if he had lived longer. But he's definitely a high point of this movie. A lot of the other actors were serious actors who did not fall into never doing serious shit again, like Lloyd Bridges and Peter Graves and Robert Stack. They all had serious careers and then continued to have serious careers after this. But I think those were all the right choice, to get guys who look serious and would play it straight.
Mm-hmm.
One Johnny was enough. You got Johnny just yucking it up, and then you got everybody else playing it straight, and that was the
Yeah.
the way to
I will
go.
say another bit I really liked was the doctor, and they would ask, what did she say at some point? She went like, the hospital, what for? And he went like, oh, it's a building that
The
houses sick people.
she's like,
Oh,
the
like
hospital.
a
What
hospital.
is
What
it?
is it?
Oh, it's
Oh,
a
yeah.
building
Yeah.
with patients, but that's not important right now. That's
Yeah.
not important right now. Gag is one of my favorite things.
I know, yeah. Where they just completely missed the point of whatever question was being asked.
I actually heard a newscaster do that joke live on the air once.
Wow.
His co-host said something like, I don't know if there was a closure at the airport or the hospital or something, but she said something to the effect of, the airport, what is it? He's like, well, it's a big place where all the airplanes land, but that's not important right now. So I was like, I can't. And he just, without missing a beat, he just laid down that joke and
Yeah.
it just kept going.
I will say, if I can find a place to reference that, I absolutely will.
Well, at some point you will get to use the Shirley joke.
Yeah,
That's a
I
very
wanted to
popular
ask,
one.
was that from this movie or was that something they?
It's from this movie.
Because I was gonna say, I was like, I've heard that reference so many times, and when I heard it in the movie, I was like, oh, they're just
It's from
referencing
this movie.
that joke that everyone uses. But then it dawned on me that might have been from this movie.
Yes.
Which kind of blew my mind for a second, if I'm being honest.
Yes, absolutely.
Did you recognize the kissing couple getting hit with seaweed as featured in Shrek 2?
Oh my gosh, I was wondering about that. I was like, it's like what?
Apparently, that was like a common
Did
gag at
Shrek
the
2
time, though,
steal
because
that
there were a
joke?
lot. No, Shrek 2 does it. They do a similar joke. I think my dad had told me that that was not the first instance of this joke was in Airplane, but in Shrek
Yeah.
2 they have the waves come over them.
Well,
It's Shrek and Fiona on their honeymoon. The waves come over them, and then when the waves retreat, the little mermaid is on top of Shrek.
oh yeah, I
And
do.
then Fiona grabs her by the tail, drags her down the beach, and throws her into the ocean.
I did assume that bit with the seaweed had to be from something else, but I didn't know what it was from, so it
Okay.
didn't
No,
land for
well,
me.
so what it is, that is a reference to the movie From Here to Eternity, which is a serious movie, and the couple is making out on the beach while the waves wash over them. I don't think any seaweed is left behind, or if it is, it's just a little bit. So as far
but
as I
this was
know,
like a
Airplane's the
more
first one to make
realistic
a joke
take.
out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
my dad
yeah,
could
yeah.
be misremembering and just like remembering this gag happening a lot, but maybe Airplane was the originator of it.
Yeah. It is referring to another movie.
Oh, I see.
Do either of you know who Barbara Billingsley is?
I was just telling you how terrible I am with names. You're gonna have to.
She's the jive lady.
Oh,
Excuse me,
that's where
stewardess.
I've
I
heard her
speak
name
jive.
because I read one article where they mentioned her by name, um, but no.
Okay, so she's kind of a bit of stunt casting. She was the mother on Leave It to Beaver, which was a very it was a sitcom from black and white days from 1957 to 1963 was Leave It to Beaver, and she was June Cleaver, the mother on the show. Anybody watching this movie would have either grown up watching Leave It to Beaver or watching reruns of it on afternoon television and would know who she was, but she wasn't doing a bunch of stuff at the time. So the idea of getting, Mrs. Middle America suburban housewife to come in and speak jive, to get June Cleaver to speak jive, was part of the joke of not just that this lady was doing it, but who the specific actress was.
It's a cameo.
So, and yes, and I think she does a great job with it. And there's a real sport in that scene. Brother, don't worry
I had
about
read that the lines that the men were saying were not like written in the script because they came in and the directors are kind of like, we have this, and they were like, can we just do our own thing? So the two male actors came up with most of the
it wasn't
actual
authentically
lines.
jive enough.
No, they were just kind of like, we're just gonna do our own thing, and
Yeah, that makes
then
sense.
apparently they coached Barbara Billingsley, if I said her name correctly. They like had to like coached her through how to say what she was going to say.
Wow, I
Right.
want to see what they
That's
had
great.
written
I
for
love
it.
that.
I want to see what they had written because I feel
Right.
like
It
that must
the
just.
way I read it, it was like very clearly like kind of a cop out where they like were like, so this is what the joke is meant to be, but this is all we could produce.
Right.
And then they stepped
I
in
think
and they were like, okay, we
that's
got it.
best though.
Yeah.
That's the right decision to let the people who actually know just do it.
Oh,
and
Do
it
the
makes it
thing.
authentic.
Yeah, because that joke was wonderful because they would talk
Yeah.
and I didn't have a clue. Didn't have a clue, man.
I mean, I could tell
It was
the main
hilarious
thing
when
was like not being able to hear what they were saying clearly. Like when I turned the subtitles on and then I could understand what they were saying, and I was
Yeah.
a little peeved at the translations because I was like, these aren't accurate translations. But
yeah, they were cursing in half of them. Like I remember at some point he goes like shit, and then the little translation just says golly.
and I guess maybe
Golly.
that's part of the spoof is that it's meant to be a translation that specifically is like putting it into a specific kind of English.
Yes, yeah.
But
Which I'm gonna be
Yes.
honest, I found that pretty funny.
Yes,
It
golly.
wasn't even just like layman terms. It was translating into like proper English almost, which I did find that funny.
Right. Ethel Merman is in it, kind of playing herself.
I'm sorry, you're gonna have to
Broadway
explain.
actress.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Ethel Merman.
Is that all that we get?
Ethel Merman. Yeah, she was a Broadway actress who was known for Anything Goes, Annie Get Your Gun, Gypsy, Hello Dolly. She specifically sings a piece of a song from Gypsy. And she was just known for her big, belty, booming voice. And she is Lieutenant Hurwitz, who's in the hospital because he thinks so the joke is that Lieutenant Hurwitz thinks he's Ethel Merman, and then
Oh,
it actually is
that
Ethel
part.
Merman
Yes, I remember that.
who
Yeah.
gets up. Yeah,
They're sitting in the hospital and they're like,
yeah.
yeah, he thinks he's found the tunnel into the secret entrance or whatever, and then it shows the guy in bed, and then it's like, and then Lieutenant, he thinks he's this Broadway actress, and then it pans over and there's just this lady singing. I did like that joke because
So
even though I didn't
she
know
sings
who
a
they
little
were
bit of
talking about, I
Everything's
figured that's
Coming Up
what it was.
Roses. You worked it out. I did not realize
Yeah, I
James
was like,
Hong was
oh,
in this
this
movie.
must
How did
not
I not
be.
know that?
James who?
James Hong is the Japanese general.
Yeah, so he plays the one Asian guy that commits seppuku over having to listen to Ted's boring ass story.
Yes,
That was not a gag that was vibing with me,
He's
in
been
case that wasn't apparent.
I liked that gag. I did like that gag.
It wasn't vibing with me from when the first time the lady hanged herself, but admittedly, I'm a little touchy about suicide, so like,
Yeah, and then well, I will say
Wow.
when I saw she had hung herself, I didn't know that's what happened. I because like the rational part of my brain was like, oh, the ceiling isn't high enough for that, so something else must be happening. But then I figured it out later. But
yeah, the note I took about the third iteration of that gag was all caps. Oh my god, they're going to have the Middle Eastern coded guy light himself on fucking fire. Oh my god, with like a bunch of D's. I was, having a time.
yeah, that wasn't. I do understand that though. The gag with the girl and the IV in her arm, whenever she was playing guitar and she would whack the IV out of this girl's arm, that gag wasn't vibing with me because I've got a big thing about needles. I hate needles. But like I could see that being funny. I just needles really bother me.
I thought it was mostly. I thought that was funny because I was like, man, this actress is really selling. Good for you, girl. Like,
that singing nun bit is from I think one of the airport movies.
yes, I don't remember which one, but it's
not
spoofing a
from,
specific moment from
0
one of the other
Hour.
movies. Hmm.
Yeah. Can't remember if she sings the same song. So something you might have seen James Hong in most recently is Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Oh, so
Really?
so he's Mr. Ping and he's he's Gong Gong in Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Wow. Wow, that's crazy.
Yes, he's Mr.
He's Mr. Ping in the Kung Fu
Panda.
Panda movies.
He's in. I don't know if you've ever seen Big Trouble in Little China, but he's the bad guy.
I haven't.
He's in all kinds of stuff, and he's great. You should definitely see Big Trouble in Little China. So, any other thoughts, issues, favorite parts of Airplane?
Let me see. I have lots of notes. Let me just Oh, I thought the Mayo Clinic joke
Sure.
I rolled my eyes at.
Oh,
But
I
the
thought
heart
that
though,
was hilarious.
the heart though, I was like, what the? I was like, okay, I like this a lot.
Really, I didn't like the heart thing because like I've got like a blood thing. I'm
Okay,
like really
that's fair.
squeamish about like body stuff. So I thought the it was like, okay, pass me the ham, hold the mayo, or sorry, ham on 5, hold the mayo. I thought that was funny.
I rolled my eyes
Yeah.
at that one too, but also that was like at the beginning of the movie, so I was like all cynicism going in.
No, I think that was the joke that really broke the ice for me, and I was like, okay, I think this will go well.
Here's my question. Was the original pilot supposed to be gay? Question mark. Because they do this
you mean 'cause
gag.
of the inappropriate questions?
Yes.
Yeah, the
that.
first question he asked that boy,
And
was like,
when
"Have you
they
ever
do
seen
the
have you ever
when they
seen a
do the
grown man
whacking
naked?"
material gag, he's got a magazine that specifically has the title Sperm, but I'm pretty sure there was still a naked woman on the cover.
Yeah,
So I
Sperm
wasn't sure if that
Weekly.
was meant to be like code like so I was like, okay, maybe that's just they're like, oh look, wouldn't this be a funny thing to name a magazine? And it's not meant to be anything else. But then when all the questions started coming, I was like, oh,
Ooh, yeah. I will say those questions
Right.
they made me flinch at first,
It's
but
so
then
weird
later
because
on,
yes, it's sort of implied it's kind of I don't know if implied strong enough that he might be some kind of a pedophile. But he asks the questions just in such a straightforward manner.
I
Have you
know.
ever seen
And
a grown
in
man
front of other
naked? Do you ever
people.
hang
So
around
it's
a
so,
gymnasium?
yeah.
You like movies about gladiators?
Yeah. So, right. It's just so
Yeah.
weird the way I mean, and the kid reacts to these things. The kid knows these are inappropriate questions.
Hmm.
So I don't know. It's very. I mean, it always makes me laugh. Yeah, I don't know what we're meant to think about all of
Yeah, I
that.
don't know why. I don't know why though. I think it was, if I'm being honest, I think it was just for the absurdity of it,
Hmm.
because the absurdity of the
So
questions would get me
Yeah,
later.
I read
because
also
it
that in
starts
one of
off
the
with just
movies
like,
they're
"Have you ever been in a
spoofing,
cockpit before?"
Yeah.
in one of the movies they're spoofing, there's a scene where a kid gets to come up into the cockpit and he like hugs the pilot. So I guess for the
Uh-huh.
spoof, they're like, well, what if we just like
Okay.
really made
Just
this uncomfortable for everybody?
take that too far.
um,
Right.
but
I
yeah.
see. Could be. That could be it. That could be it.
So
Uh,
one of my least
s-
favorite gags, because I'm here to talk shit, I
uh-huh.
guess. One of my least favorite gags was when Elaine had to reinflate the autopilot because I knew exactly where we were going with this, and it happened, and I was like, "Great, cool, I'm having so
Right.
much fun right now." And then I will say, I did like the fact that both of them had after sex cigarettes afterwards, and I'm like, okay, that part is funny. I wish this gag hadn't happened at all, but that part, I'm glad it did happen. If it's gonna happen, I'm glad they put that part in there too, because I was like that for me like elevated the joke.
Right. It's not my favorite gag, although I do kind of find his smile amusing.
Yeah.
That made it. Was not having fun with that.
I will say one of my least favorite, not because I think it would have been a good joke, I think it was just poorly done, was the scene where the lady got sick and then those eggs kept coming out of her mouth. And I was like, that could have been really funny, but the way that the doctor was pulling them out, it was just very obvious sleight of hand, which just bothered me a little bit,
Oh,
how apparent it
Well,
was.
yeah. I mean, it is a pretty standard magic trick.
I do have a note about that scene, but it's kind of inappropriate. I don't know what the line is for this show.
No, you go right ahead.
This lady spitting a continuous stream of eggs out of her mouth is definitely some kind of fetish somewhere out there on the internet. Is my
Is
note.
it? Is it?
Oh, I am almost certain.
That's
I
what
feel like
there's a name for that rule. It's rule something. What's the
Rule
rule?
42.
Rule 34. Rule 34 is
Yeah,
that
I think
anything on
that's
the anything if it
rule
exists,
34.
there's porn of it. That's the joke.
I thought it was
Yeah,
42.
and
Is
it's
it
somebody's
34?
into
Am I
it.
just
Somebody
remembering?
somewhere is
34
into it.
is the is 34 is the porn one. I
Oh.
know there are some other ones, but 34 for sure is the porn one.
I just know there's no rule 6. Uh, okay, so guys, on a scale of 1 to 5, what are you gonna rate Airplane from
Am I
1980?
rating this based on what I think its objective quality is, or am I rating this based on my personal taste and experience with it?
If
They're
you
different
have two
scores.
different ratings, go ahead and hit me with it. Go ahead and give me both.
So I'm thinking for like considering its impact, cultural impact, and the prominence it had at the time, and how its effect that it had on comedy going forward. I recognize like this is a big pop culture thing, so I'll give it a 4. But for me personally, in my experience, like 3 to 3.5.
All right. Well, get ready
Okay.
for me because I'll go ahead and give both of mine as well, but both of mine are actually the same score. Um, because I did really enjoy this movie. I'll give it a 5 just because that sense of humor was right up my alley. A lot of the puns they used when just like passively speaking, too, I really enjoyed. And then for like objective quality, I will say it seemed like this movie had a like very high production value for like all of the props and like all of the physical stuff that went into it, all of their sets and everything. Like the plane coming through the window at the very beginning, that was a one-time joke, and they still did that whole bit there, and it looked very good for like at the time that it was produced and everything. I just or that when the plane
Uh-huh.
landed and it like it looked good, the plane landing and everything that went into that. uh I really enjoyed the production value of it overall.
I do think the comedy's at its strongest when they do the overly literal interpretations of things that people are saying, whether it's with a visual gag like the smoking ticket or the drinking problem,
Oh, the
or if
smoking
it's
ticket. I forgot about the smoking ticket. I thought that was so funny.
the first time it happened, I was like, okay. And then when they brought it back out and it was still smoking, I was like, okay, now this
Yeah.
is an excellent joke.
Every time it was in his hands, it was just still spewing out smoke. And I was like, wow, this is.
You used to be able to smoke on airplanes, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes,
So,
that's the point of having a smoking
again,
section, if not.
Again, if you haven't seen the movie, the lady at the counter asks it when he goes to buy the ticket. She says, "Smoking or non-smoking?" And he says, "Smoking." And she hands him the ticket itself.
The
is
ticket
A
is
ticket
like
that looks like dry
spewing
ice
out
dropped in
smoke.
water.
Yeah, so much smoke coming off
Yeah,
his
yeah.
ticket every time he takes it out. And then what's funnier still is when he gets on the plane, there's a light that flashes that says like to fasten seatbelts, and then right above it there's a light that flashes on that says no smoking. And I was like, wow.
No smoking, no screwing.
No, that was later. That was a
That
bit
was later. Okay.
Well, they would turn it so at after the plane takes off. I think then they turn off the no smoking sign, and you can go ahead and line up.
Yeah,
Oh.
that makes
Yeah,
sense.
I believe that's how it used to work. Yeah.
Mhm.
So let me hit you with these numbers. Budget, 3.5 million. Box office, 171 million.
God damn, what is that in today's dollars? Let me pull that up.
Oh, I don't know what that would be adjusted for inflation.
Was
but
this
it's not
1980?
Excellent
too
profit
shabby.
margin on that one.
Was this 1980? This
Yeah,
movie?
not.
Yeah.
Yep, 1980. Yes.
Wow, 100. That's about $133 million today.
Yeah. If
Which
you haven't
number?
watched Airplane, you can watch it on Paramount Plus.
So the $3.5 million budget comes out to about a 133.2 million budget
see.
today, which
Oh,
honestly,
That's a small movie. It's
that's
small budget for a
that's not
studio-produced
yeah, that's
movie.
not crazy for a movie. But I mean, I could see it because I mean, there wasn't any like computer. Well, there must have been some, but like very little. There's no like CGI
no.
back then, and that's where most of movie budget goes now.
When they shatter the glass, that's a form of animation. It was not computer done.
Mhm.
They
Oh.
animated that and laid it over top of.
What did you say the profit was?
Like a
Dominic?
composite.
What was the box office to return? 171.
171. That is 64 billion today. Wait, am I reading this right?
That can't be right.
It took the wrong number. Hold on.
Aren't you supposed to be like a STEM major or something?
Well, what if I can't read, huh?
Oh, okay, that's fair.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It's just because it cut out one of my zeros. Hold on. You keep talking.
Oh, all of the
Apparently this is gonna take me way too long.
the Tupperware party on the Peace Corps mission was good. That came out. I was like, oh my, wait, no, oh my gosh, she's doing a Tupperware party.
Yeah, I did really like that. Today, that is 650 million profit that it made.
Okay.
In
Yeah.
20.
Oh, I have another question.
Uh-huh.
Why is there a credit for A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens? What is that?
Oh,
I
it's
didn't look
just
that
a
one up. I
random-
should have looked that one up. Okay, so it's just a gag of like it's just
No, it's
randomly
just-
here.
Yeah.
Or okay.
Isn't this the movie that also has the worst boy? Is worst boy in
The-
this movie in the credits, or did you not notice?
I don't think I
Best
noticed that.
Boy
It's
is
just
a
Charles
credit.
Dickens. It was toward the end of the credit sequence, and it had like a line all to itself. So that's why
Right.
I noticed it. I was like, what?
Okay. So I think it's in this movie. So best boy is a position on a film. I
Mhm.
can't remember what they do, but you see it in the credits. Best boy. So right after, I think it's this movie. It might be Airplane 2. Right after best boy is the credit for worst boy, Adolf Hitler.
Oh, I think I might have seen that. I'm not certain. I can't remember.
Okay.
I don't think I think if I had seen it, I would have written it down. But I heard this before.
Yeah, it's just a random
Mhm.
random gag credit. It doesn't
To credit
it's not
Charles
referring to
Dickens
anything
for some
specific.
reason.
Yeah.
And I will confess, I didn't the name Otto for the autopilot didn't click for me, but it wasn't that like, oh, It's every time I heard them say his name, I heard them saying it Auto, and so it wasn't till the end credits when I was like, oh, apparently his name is Otto, and then I went, oh, that's the joke. That's the joke.
The autopilot.
Wow,
Yes.
that didn't.
I'll
That
tell
didn't
you the
click
one
for
I
me.
didn't.
Said
The
it,
one I
just-
didn't get. For years I just thought it was just a weird. The joke that just kind of went past me for years, and I don't know why, is when he says it's an entirely different kind of flying altogether, and they say it's an entirely different kind of flying.
Altogether, yeah.
And the altogether part
Oh,
just
all
never
together.
quite clicked
Yeah.
with me.
Wait, I get that
Yes, so
now. Yeah.
then they
Altogether,
say
it's an
it
entirely
never
different
got
kind of
that.
kind of
Yeah.
flying.
I didn't get that when watching it either. I just thought they were just being
Yeah.
mean to him.
I did get that note. That
Right,
one's
but-
written down. I just rewrote the joke.
But I watched it multiple times over a period of years before it finally clicked in my head why they were repeating what he had just said.
It's a different kind of
So-
flying.
So don't
Altogether.
feel bad.
Oh, where did there's that joke of like the people on the baggage claim conveyor belt, and the visual was very funny, but I like did they say
I-
something over the intercom or something that
Yeah,
kind of like
I don't know
introduced the
why
premise
they
of
did
it,
that.
or was it just supposed to be like random? Haha. Because I feel like if there had been like a line to set it up, it would have been way funnier. But there might have been, and I just
I
missed
don't
it.
remember. I don't remember why they're coming down. Why the people are coming down the chute.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why.
I was impressed with how they like fell into each other. Like way to hold position, guys.
Let's see. This movie was ranked 6th on Bravo's 100 Funniest Movies. A 2007 survey by Channel 4 in the UK puts it 2nd of all time behind Monty Python's Life of Brian. Now, I'm going to disagree with that and say that number 1 should be Monty Python and the Holy Grail. I think that movie is funnier than Life of Brian. I don't know if I'd put Life of Brian in the top 10, but I would definitely put Airplane right after Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Have you guys seen that movie?
I've seen parts of it. I saw Spam a lot once when I was a child, and I wasn't old enough to comprehend what was going on and really appreciate it. But I love the Lady of the Lake and how much she was a diva.
Yeah, Lady of the Lake is not in Holy Grail, the movie she's just referred to.
Right.
Now, folks, it's not my intention that this be a movie review show. That just happens to have been our first Oldsplains topic that came up organically as I interacted with these youngsters. So it's not necessarily going to be a movie or a TV show every week, but it will be on occasion, just so you know, going forward. Do you guys have a Youngsplains topic for me this week?
So since I'm 5 years older than anyone else that I know is doing this podcast, or on the young side, I have a topic, but I worry that maybe it might just be a little too old for them.
I will do my
Okay.
best. I'm ready to research it right now because the thing about
My-
me is just that I don't watch movies.
Well,
very
it's not a
often.
movie.
Yeah, it
My
doesn't have to be a movie.
favorite, one of
Any
my
sort of
favorite
cultural
things
phenomena that I might not be aware of.
in the world
Uh-huh.
is the infamous Harry Potter fan fiction, My Immortal.
I do believe I've heard of this.
When it came out, I probably was like a very small child, but it gained a lot of like internet prominence later on. People started talking about it more. And then in the mid to late 2010s, when I was in high school, someone came out and said that they had authored My Immortal, because we do not know who wrote My Immortal. Someone came out and said that they had authored My Immortal, and then we found out she didn't. But there was a lot of shenanigans that happened with that. My friend had come up to me and she was like, they found the author of My Immortal. I was like, what? And she was like, yeah, apparently it's this lady, and she said that she like wrote the story to try to reconnect with her brother that she lost in the foster care system. And I was like, what? That sounds insane. What are you talking about? And I was like, hey, okay, maybe she's just like misremembering this, or like she's doing a bad job of explaining it. But no, that is actually what that lady claimed. And it was I was like, that sounds kind of bullshit, because it was. But anyway, My Immortal, it's a 40
I will
chapter
say,
fan fiction,
I
but
feel
it's
like
very
that's-
short chapters.
That we might go into that, just kind of the culture of fan fiction, because I don't know if that was I don't know how long that has really been around.
That started with,
It
I
goes
think,
back-
largely credited
I can
with
tell you.
Star Trek.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. It began with Star Trek, and it's the reason we still have Star Trek. Star Trek was only 3 seasons, and then it went into syndication. And people published fan magazines, fanzines, if you will, that had fan fiction in them. And, you could get these through the mail or at conventions or whatnot. And so they would write poetry and short stories and whatever, fan fiction. It is also what is responsible for the subgenre of slash fiction, Kirk/Spock stories, in which Kirk and Spock have a romantic relationship. Yeah.
Which I feel like there's a whole more modern, like generally speaking, that is how the term fan fiction is used, is generally referring to slash fiction now. Whenever I hear
most of the most prominent examples usually.
Absolutely, I never hear about normal, like people just writing.
Well, there's 50 Shades of Grey, and there's Cassandra Clare's Mortal Instruments trilogy, which both started as fan fiction.
What was Mortal Instruments fan fiction of?
Okay, well, so Mortal Instruments
Youngsplain to me what that is fan fiction of.
From what I understand, I never consumed Mortal Instruments, but from what I understand, it's based off of, she used to be really big in the Harry Potter fan fiction community. So, like, she was like famous as a Harry Potter fan. She was like a big deal on, to the point where like there was one lady that faked like 56 identities just to get into the same social ranking as Cassandra Clare. Anyway, Cassandra Clare, famous for Harry Potter fan fiction. I think she was, I don't know who she shipped Ginny with, but I believe she was not very much into Harry and Ginny as a couple. I think the way Mortal Instruments shakes out, I think she ends up with the equivalent of Draco, maybe? Question mark. But I don't.
Thing. I thought it ended up being an incest.
Well, okay, I'm getting there. The title.
Sorry, I don't want to spoil it.
The title is The Mortal Instruments, and she had used this title specifically of all the fan works she made. The title she chose to reuse for her big debut novel stuff was the title she had for her Ron Ginny incest fan fiction that she wrote. And something about the way, I haven't like consumed a lot about this, but the way that it was framed to me, it seemed almost as if it was like almost like a spite thing versus like something she was genuinely into.
That's what I've heard about.
But I don't know. I don't know what's in her heart, and I only know a few people's interpretations of these events. I was not there, so that sort of thing.
And I believe that the incest version of that remains like one of the most read Harry Potter fan fictions, which is just hilarious.
It's just you hear about that, and you're telling me you're not gonna at least kind of want to see it. How could this possibly exist? And you read it, it's like, oh my god, this is real. It's real and it exists. Oh my god. I feel like My Immortal has to be topping that though. My Immortal's a classic.
So you're saying Mortal Instruments kind of start out as Harry Potter fan fiction?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm not seeing the direct connection there, but I could see how.
Again, having not consumed
started writing is.
Yeah, having not directly consumed Mortal Instruments. Doesn't she have a friend that a childhood friend that I think his name's Simon, that's into her, but she's not into him.
I haven't read it. I don't.
Because
I mean, it could be a case where she was writing about these characters, but putting similar to 50 Shades, where she's taken the characters but then put them in a different environment.
Yes, that's very possible.
Than they're originally in.
And
which then ends up turning into its own thing.
Yeah, and that's very common for fan fiction writers, actually.
I'm pretty sure Simon, or whatever his name is meant to be Harry. Because at least one adaptation that they did of it, he's got dark hair and glasses. I don't know if he has it in the books or all the adaptations, but it's something I noticed once. And I was like, okay.
There's an entire Wikipedia article on this.
Do you have it pulled up too? I have it pulled up right now. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't see where it is I can actually read it.
It probably is very difficult to get a hold of it because I know
it's not difficult at all. It's on AO3.
Oh, that's good. That makes sense. No, that's right, because she's big on
it. Okay. One of the first links that popped up when I looked this up.
because I know E.L. James / Erica Mitchell, which is her real name, who wrote 50 Shades of Grey, scrubbed the original fan fiction from most of the internet. Like, she did her best to scrub it, and also she sent cease and desist to the Internet Archive to take down any of the archives that they had of it. I know it's still floating around somewhere because content
That's pretty
creators will read it
ballsy.
every once in a while. Yeah, but it's floating around somewhere, but it's much more difficult to access, and it's also really difficult to access it in like its original form, where it has things like dates and comments and stuff like that. It's like you're trying to figure out when the first chapter of the fan fiction was published is actually surprisingly difficult because it's so thoroughly scrubbed from the internet.
I find this incredibly hypocritical to commit this blatant copyright infringement and then try to prevent other people from reading it, trying to claim some sort of ownership of your copyright infringement.
Oh yeah, I also heard that she's
restrict
particularly
access
vicious at
to
anyone
it.
that tries to make derivative works of 50 Shades, but that's something I've heard in like one line of a video that was not actually talking about that. So I don't know how real it is or what that
Right.
looks like, but it's
It
funny
wouldn't
in like
surprise me
it has
because
to be funny, otherwise it's sad
she's the devil.
way. Oh,
Well, let me tell you, I do not. I in general do not approve of fan fiction. There is some elements of some of my own writing that does use other people's characters, but people who are long dead whose characters are in the public domain, which is just part of how literature works. But I would never just take the characters of a living author and presume to write my own shit. Just now, it's one thing to be inspired by something, but just change the names of the characters and put them in a different setting, and then you're writing Mortal Instruments instead of Harry Potter and his best friend screw his sister or whatever.
Well, the thing
hell
is,
you're doing.
one of the reasons that works so well is because if you put in your own characters, you're like working off of your own like fandom, you know. But if you use like Harry
Yeah.
Potter and all that, there's a massive there's a massive group of
Insta
people.
audience.
Yeah, like there's people who will read that
Yeah,
right off the
yeah.
bat just because of those characters, and so
Sure. Yeah.
I'm sure for
But I mean, it's great to have a massive audience, but if you're not making money at it, then what's the? Yeah. I mean, I guess you
Well,
would maybe get some artistic satisfaction.
well, I
You're not making
mean,
a living
like
at it.
Cassandra Clare got herself a massive Harry Potter fanfiction audience and got herself a book deal, and then movies. Same for Miss Erica Mitchell over there.
Yeah. Right.
And Anna Todd from Wattpad and after the After series. I don't think that they should have. I'm
Yeah,
not necessarily saying that
Jesus Christ.
I wish that I think that's a
Yeah.
great thing or whatever, but I am saying it is a pathway that clearly can and
Right.
has worked.
The After series, though, as bad as it may be, I don't know, I haven't read it. That's a different kind of fan fiction that is not.
That's self-insert
She's
fan
not
fiction,
taking literary.
and it's real
Right,
people.
but it's not literary characters. Yeah. She's based her characters on real people, but their actual personalities and behavior does not necessarily resemble the real people at all. Just
I am
maybe the physical
fascinated
description
by the
of
fact
them.
that you that you have more moral objections to a fan fiction of fictional characters than you do have to fan fiction of real people. I am fascinated
that-
by this. This is not a
I
take
mean,
I've ever heard
suppose-
before.
I suppose when
like,
she first.
yeah,
I
I've
think when she
always
first
heavily
wrote it.
objected
Well,
to
first of
fan
all,
fiction
public
about
figures are
real
fair
people.
game. Public figures are fair game for one thing. But it's not a copyright infringement to say I want to bang Harry Styles. That you're not infringing on anybody's copyright to say I imagine banging Harry Styles. But I suppose when she first published it on the fan forum or whatever on Wattpad that she used those real names. I don't know.
Yes, it's still there. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure you can still go read it because
It's certainly easy enough to just say I have a crush on Jennifer Connelly. This character's inspired by her, but I'm going to change her name to Molly Connolly or whatever, you know. That's all you got to do. But it's not like she's taken an actual. She's actually made up her own characters and just based them on the physical appearance of Harry Styles and whoever else. But I've done some writing of my own, and if I can ever get it published, I will come down hard on any fan fiction. I'm just saying that now. So cease and desist.
I will be the first person writing.
I have a
just
different
to
view on
spite you.
fan fiction. So.
Just to spite you, I will be the first person writing about it.
The thing is, you end up in a Star Trek situation, and yeah, if without fan fiction, we might not have any Star Trek today. But Paramount has put themselves in this position where they have looked the other way on fan-made films for decades, and then they started trying to clamp down on it, and it's led to some issues. Basically, they in an aspirin situation where it could be argued that they failed to protect their own trademark and have allowed it to fall in the public domain by waiting too long to protect it. I did also want to mention fan fiction is where the term Mary Sue comes from. Are you guys familiar with the Mary Sue?
Well, yeah, I want to talk about My Immortal. Obviously, I know what a Mary Sue is.
I don't know what that is referring to.
A Mary Sue, and sometimes people accuse real characters of being a Mary Sue, like Rey from Star Wars.
What is a real character? Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
I'm saying somebody that's
people
not
have
a fan
accused
fiction.
her of being Mary Sue. It's
Right.
often, yeah, it's used a lot for female characters. It's so weird how that keeps
And then
happening for
people
female characters in
have claimed
male-dominated
that Luke
fandoms.
Skywalker's a Mary Sue, and well, I think Larry Stu is the male equivalent.
No, I've heard Gary Stu. Gary
Gary
Stu was
Stu.
the one I heard for the Master.
So
What is
Mary Sue refers to a piece of a fan fiction. It was actually the original Mary Sue was actually a parody of other Star Trek fan fiction.
Yes.
Where Lieutenant Mary Sue comes in, who is like an author's self-insert, and does a better job than all the established characters. Lieutenant Mary Sue comes in and saves Kirk and Spock and McCoy from
She is
the
exceptionally
situation.
skilled.
Yeah, she's better than everybody else, saves the day. In the original story, dies and then is mourned by all of the established characters. But she specifically was created to make fun of this type of character that was already beginning to show up in fan fiction, where my character is just as cool, if not cooler, than Kirk and Spock.
And usually there's also an element nowadays to a lot of Mary Sue style characters. Like, I feel like the more legitimate accusations of Mary Sue style characters also have this quality where everyone is just into them. Everyone wants to fuck them. It's like, so Bella Swan could be argued to be a Mary Sue because like almost every male character that isn't already taken wants to be with her. And when she becomes a vampire, she so naturally adapts to the abilities and doesn't have any of that struggling like newborn phase that that supposedly exists, that is mentioned in the previous books, all that sort of stuff.
She's hyper competent, better at vampiring than all the other vampires. She's also a blank slate for the reader to lay themselves over top of.
She's a self-insert. She's and she does a good job of doing that.
So here we are. Now we're talking about Twilight. God damn it. I'm going to put an end to this now.
It all comes back to one thing.
All right. So I found in My Immortal chapters 1 through 11. So for next time, I will read a little bit of this and give my thoughts and feelings on it.
Okay, here's my thing. You should read further. You should at least read to where it gets hacked. The girl's account gets hacked.
It got hacked?
The character?
And someone else publishes the chapter.
I have not heard about that.
No, the author. The author's account gets hacked. And then someone else posts a chapter saying, haha, I hacked into this chick's account. And then they post a chapter that is like parodying the rest of it.
Wait. Oh my gosh, I've never heard about this before.
Okay, you might have to send me a link to that one. So you're saying that's after, just the first thing that pops up after the Wikipedia article is chapters 1 through 11 on the My Immortal wiki.
Yeah, there's like 40-ish
So
chapters. So, and I don't know which chapter is when the hacker shows up, but it's not 1 through 11.
But you think
I have most of the first
archived?
paragraph memorized. A
Right,
sense
so
of
yeah,
pride for me.
I can click to the next.
Yes, it is for
wherever
sure
this
somewhere
is.
on the internet.
This is myimmortal.fandom.com/wiki. My Immortal chapters.
Yeah, there are multiple
copies
of it that exist out there on the internet. I'm pretty sure someone's reposted it to fanfiction.net. Someone's reposted it to Wattpad. So
well, I think I'm looking at the
there.
one on Wattpad, and I think that it may have been a bit rewritten by the looks of it. But the Fanfic.net one looks fun.
Okay.
I think I still have a link to a Wattpad one
Oh,
that
yeah.
I can send if someone needs it, but I'll find links for my
Okay.
Immortal.
Yeah, if you can find that part of it.
To be clear, I don't like consume this and think it's like a brilliant piece of literature. I just think it has a lot of pop culture significance.
Okay. So for next time, now folks, I already have, as I mentioned, another podcast that comes out every week. So I don't think this one, at least to start with, is going to come out every week. It'll probably be monthly to begin with. Of course, if it takes off, we'll see if we can make it go more often than that. For next time, I just want to ask you, have either of you ever heard of the Micronauts?
I do not think so.
No. I'm sure I've heard the title before, but I know absolutely you say that, and I'm like, I assume that's a
Sounds
sci-fi
vague.
thing, but I don't know if it's a movie, a book, a TV series.
There is actually a series of novels with that title, but that's not what I'm referring to. But I will probably address that as well when we cover the Micronauts next time. It is was a line of toys that was also turned into a comic book.
Yeah, I said
Sadly, it
when
has
I looked
not
it up,
been
the
turned into a
first thing
movie.
was the comics. Was the thing that popped up.
Well, that is just recent. They have just recently been reprinted in a large omnibus, the first volume of what will be 3 volumes of reprints. The reason it hasn't been reprinted before now is a licensing issue because Marvel Comics did not own them outright.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, look, I will Oldsplain Micronauts to you next time. And if you feel like looking into it a little bit before then to get some context, you can probably find a few things on YouTube of the toys and stuff.
Yeah.
So we will talk about the Micronauts next time.
All right.
I think that's going to wrap it up. We've been going on for quite a bit now, folks.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining us. We do not currently have a website. We don't have a Patreon for this yet. There is one for the other show.
This is a pilot.
Yeah, it's a pilot. For now, go to mmftg.com to contact me if you have any suggested topics or just want to say hi or give us any feedback.
That would be good to get suggested topics from the audience. Much appreciated.
So thanks for joining us here, folks. Brianna and Quinn, thank you for joining me. I've been your host, Precious D. We won't see you, but you will hear us next time on Oldsplain, Youngsplain.
You've been listening to Oldsplain, Youngsplain with Precious D. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and review us on your podcasting platform of choice.